Good morning, everyone. It's Matthias Chang from Future Fast Forward once again. Today, my address concerns three issues which I believe is very important, and I hope you will have the time or the weekend to watch it, analyze it, and pass on to your friends. The first issue that I want to highlight to all of you is a pathetic demonstration of our Prime Minister groveling in an effort to show that he has some support from some foreign leaders. In my previous address, I did discuss with you that he can't have the cake and eat it. When on the one hand, he asks for support from a foreign leader, at the same time condemn foreign leaders or countries that criticize him. What happened recently at the ASEAN summit in Vientiane, Laos, speak volumes of our Prime Minister. May I draw attention to this picture which our Prime Minister uploaded to his Facebook. Can you see the words and the picture? Alright? Now, it may not be obvious to most of you, but let me point out to you from this picture what is most unusual as compared to previous pictures of our Prime Minister with Obama. You will notice that at summits, there are always what we call sideline meetings between the President of America or other leaders with the Prime Minister. And they are very formal photographs with flags of both countries in the background, showing that they are involved in very serious discussions on a variety of issues. Right? It'll be either in a special room or on a stage. But here is a picture, and I stand to be corrected, of Obama walking past the table in which the Prime Minister and his wife were sitting, and then maybe just say, exchange pleasantries. Look at the words, right? Which is a quotation spoken by the Prime Minister. Okay? And he says that he exchanged pleasantries. Now, just pause here for a while. What does that indicate to the whole world and to Malaysians at large when he says, "It's nice seeing you, Mr. President," and uploading it into his Facebook page? It's either he's trying to show to the whole world and to you, most probably, that Obama still supports him, or that he's in the good books of Obama. But why would a leader do that if he was very confident and assured that he has not committed any crimes? He's in fact a respected leader, not only in our country, but in the world. Would he need to use another leader as a reference point as to his standing? But what is most pathetic is that a mere exchange of pleasantry in a by the way moment was used to illustrate the so-called support. Now, you will notice prior to that summit, the President of the Philippines whacked Obama for interfering in his policy of going after drug addicts, drug kingpins in Philippines. And yet, And yet, although Obama said he would not have a formal meeting with the President of Philippines, subsequently, there was a meeting. And I quote, a White House official said the exchange consisted of pleasantries between the two. Obama and Duterte shook hands and talked briefly before attending the dinner to conclude the second day of the Leaders Summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, in Vientiane, Laos. The fact that White House official commented on the meeting between the President of Philippines and Obama shows there was some significance in the exchange. But more importantly, Obama made a point after being whacked, and I emphasize the word, being whacked by the President of Philippines, took the trouble to meet up with the Philippines President to ensure there will be no animosity because of the larger geopolitical impact that will result if there's animosity between Philippines and the USA. Yet in this, by the way, exchange between Prime Minister Najib and Obama, there was nothing of significance that required even an official of the White House to comment. Yet Prime Minister Najib tried to hoodwink UMNO members, his loyal but not smart cronies, to give the impression that he has the support of Obama. It shows, right, the mentality of this leader, this terrible leader, that you need a tongkat to show support of himself and his regime. There's only one conclusion. He is desperate and is going down the tubes. His ship is sinking fast, and soon his loyal but not smart cronies will be jumping off the sinking ship. Next issue which I want to highlight to you is the idiotic statement by another minister, Ismail Sabri. And bearing in mind that this minister was a former political secretary, and knowing that background, you would have assumed that any statements made by such a person would be very cautious, very circumspect, and every word examined properly so as not to be ridiculed and make a fool of himself. Now, let's see what he says, if I may draw your attention. What Ismail has done and said is a public display of his stupidity. It's also a confession of the sin of the UMNO. Quote, many UMNO members, keywords are underlined, has resorted to attacking party president and Prime Minister Najib Razak over one MDB, even though Najib has been absolved of any wrongdoing. The Auditor General, MACC, the police, even the Public Accounts Committee have cleared Najib's wrongdoing. Even the Big Four accounting company has said there was nothing wrong. But we are too tuck-soup with attacking our dear Prime Minister and President. We treat our Prime Minister as if he was guilty right away, despite almost all authorities having cleared him of wrongdoing. I want you now, hold on, to pause and think of these words by Ismail Sabri. First, he actually said and conceded now that many UMNO members have attacked the President and Prime Minister that allegedly even though he is absolved from wrongdoing. Is that not a concession and a mission that even unknown members are not hoodwinked into believing he's not guilty of the crimes of money laundering, corruption, and fraud? Then he goes on to say the keywords: the Auditor General, MACC, the police have cleared Najib wrongdoing. How does he know? The official report of the Auditor General submitted to the PAC has been classified OSA. If he was cleared of wrongdoing completely by the Auditor General, one would have thought it would not be classified as OSA. The matter would be made public as a demonstration of his innocence. The fact that it has been classified OSA means there were substantial statements of wrongdoing. And MACC has not given a blanket statement that he was innocent. There was only a statement which is now contradicted and exposed to be untruth, that there was a donation from Arab. In fact, MACC have stated very clearly that they want to have further investigations, requested the Attorney General, Tan Sri Apandi, to write to overseas authorities like the AG of Switzerland, of USA and FBI, to render mutual legal assistance so that they may then examine foreign bank accounts and other evidence to proceed further with the investigation. And they've stated categorically that the investigation into 1MDB has not been completed. And since when the police have cleared Najib, when they are saying they have still investigating, and just recently submitted the first stage of investigation into 1MDB, which was given to the Attorney General. Likewise, the Public Accounts Committee. And where and when did the Big Four accounting company said there was nothing wrong, that Najib did not do anything wrong? You will recall that the first two accounting firm was sacked by Najib himself because they refused to sign off the accounts of 1MDB because of all the discrepancy and misleading statements. And recently, after the DOJ expose and the complaint filed in California, Deloitte said categorically that the accounts which they have audited based on representations must be fraudulent by directors of 1MDB are no longer reliable or can be relied upon for the year ending 2013 and 2014. See, lies and more lies and misinterpretation and misrepresentation. But the last statement shows how stupid, how bankrupt intellectually is Sabri. We treat our PM as if he was guilty right away, despite almost all authorities having cleared him of wrongdoing. Almost all authorities. That means, in English, plain simple English, he has considered not all authorities have cleared him. Only those he alleged. That means he has considered, and which I pointed out, Swiss authority have found him guilty, AG of Switzerland, and the Financial Authority of Switzerland, alright, has in a public statement said money laundering, corruption and fraud has been perpetrated. The DOJ complained filed in California, while not a criminal procedure as such, but for feature, has produced so much evidence to implicate Najib M01. And though initially he denied, and scumbag supporters of UMNO has denied that M01 is Najib, and for which the Attorney General says, since Najib was not named in the complaint, he's innocent. But voila, now you've heard from Raman Dalla, the minister, the spokesperson for Barisan Nasional, has said only the idiot would not know M01. Who is M01? And has now, last week, openly declared to the entire world M01 is Najib. So, you can see now there's utter confusion, panic, and desperation within the UMNO camp. You know why? They are now caught totally naked. As I've said in my previous addresses, when you tell a lie, when that lie is exposed, you tell a second lie in an effort to cover the first lie. And when that is exposed again, they tell a third lie to expose the second lie, and on and on and on. They are so stupid, so desperate. And I hope, despite my telling all these idiots, these scumbags, to zip up and shut up, they continue to speak and dig a bigger hole for his boss, for their boss, to bury in and drown in a cesspool of shit, bullshit, and horseshit. Another issue which I want to draw the attention, and this is an issue which I implore and I seek the indulgence, the kind indulgence of the Sultan of Johore, to be very careful in his deliberation, His Royal Highness deliberation, with some of those Chinese leaders in Johore. It was announced that the Sultan of Johore will be hosting a tea party for the Chinese community on September 21st at Istana Besar, some 65 years, when such an event was held previously by his great-grandfather. And that this event was initiated and organized by Dato' T, an EXCO in the state government and an MCA member, a tea party. Can I just pause here for a while and just give a background? This tea party function was first initiated by Sultan Abu Bakr, and thereafter followed by the great-grandfather of the present Sultan. There's nothing wrong with having a tea party. Absolutely nothing wrong. I'm not commenting whether it's right or wrong to hold a tea party. The word tea party, this concept of having tea party with people, between a ruler and his people, was very popular with the English kings and queens, which when they hold tea party for their subjects at the garden of Buckingham Palace. But tea party vis-a-vis a Chinese community is never considered a party, especially when it involves a ruler or a leader of high standing. What normally happens is a tea ceremony. Emphasize it. Tea ceremony. Quite different from tea party. And within the culture of the Chinese community, tea ceremony involves the offering of tea to a leader of high standing or to a ruler, a king or a sultan, a teacher, a father or grandfather, as a mark of respect, piety, and loyalty. So therefore, I would urge His Royal Highness the Sultan of Johore to think carefully what was really the agenda of Dato' T and his supporters in organizing this tea party, for which you, the Sultan of Johore, the ruler, is hosting the tea party. The emphasis is different. In a tea party, you are the host. You are giving credence to those who will be invited. And they will abuse and exploit the invitation and their present tea party to say that, right? They are now of some standing by virtue of the ruler inviting them. It's more of an exercise of self-promotion, although under the guise of promoting unity. Whereas a tea ceremony, it is the leaders or the followers or other people offering tea to the ruler, offering tea as a mark of respect and loyalty. Can you see the difference? And let me tell you what actually happened. When I was appointed the political secretary to Tun Mahathir when he was Prime Minister, the first duty, public duty that I did was to organize a massive gathering in Putrajaya, a tea ceremony. Because I was criticized by some bigots, racist, chauvinist Chinese leaders and association that I'm not a Chinese. My name is Matthias Chang. Alright? I'm not a genuine Chinese. They are Chinese. And yet, no Chinese leader since independence who pride themselves as Chinese educated because they went to Chinese schools or Chinese Mandarin speaking schools and so-called Chinese cultured individuals who know the history and the culture of the Chinese community. No leaders since independence, since Tunku Abdul Rahman has offered or conducted a tea ceremony to the first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, the second Prime Minister, Tun Razak, the third Prime Minister, Tun Hussein On, or even the then fourth Prime Minister, Tun Mahathir. You see? But they call themselves Chinese. But yet, my first duty as the political secretary is to demonstrate to the entire country, especially the Chinese community, the biggest, the racist, the chauvinists, that the first duty is to, just as you do the same thing to your father, your grandfather, your teacher, is to organize a tea ceremony to show respect, loyalty to the leader. The Prime Minister being the father of the national family. This is what I did. This is a picture which we took at a tea ceremony in Putrajaya. Here you can see very clearly Tun Mahathir next to a Chinese leader drinking tea, and I'm in the background clapping on the occasion with other people. Can you see it? Alright? But this picture doesn't show who is serving tea. Alright? The next picture will show clearly a Chinese leader, Datuk Liao Pun Siak, alright, wearing traditional Chinese costume, a red or robe attire, whereby he offered tea to the Prime Minister. And below, a little boy and girl in Chinese costume, likewise offering tea to the Prime Minister. You got it? Now this picture is from a newspaper cutting, and over the years the color has faded somewhat. But I think you can recognize a Chinese leader giving tea, offering tea to the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Alright? You see? The symbolism. There was no politics, no talk of politics, but an express gesture in accordance with Chinese custom to offer tea to the Prime Minister of Malaysia. That is the correct way. And Your Royal Highness, the Sultan of Johore, let me ask you, if I may, with your indulgence, I hope you have asked all these leaders whether during the tea party they would or have the guts, the true culture to offer tea to you as a mark of respect and loyalty, and by so doing promote unity and understanding between the Chinese community and you, Your Royal Highness, as the ruler. If they fail to do that at a tea party, may I, without indulgence once again, Your Royal Highness, caution you that their demonstration to come for the tea party is not genuine. They have ulterior motive. If they're sincere, they will offer you tea, and they will, by tradition, bow 3 times to you in this manner. They will hold a tea like this, and they go in this court bow. 1, 2, 3, and offer to you. However, in the case of family traditions, like in my family tradition, we would even kneel down to offer tea to our grandfather, to our father, mother on their birthday, Chinese New Year or Spring Festival, or to our teachers. And let me tell you something, Malaysians who are not Chinese. When I was accepted and invited, accepted as a disciple by my master to learn the ancient art and wisdom of Wushu, Qigong, Yan Shao Gong, the Qigong for longevity, the most lethal Wushu, I had to offer tea to my master to show my filial piety and my respect to him, to be so selected, to be so privileged to be his disciple. Yet, something very interesting happened recently. During the 30th general election, Prime Minister Najib, in a meeting in Tun Mahathir's house, private meeting, there's only 3 of us, Tun Mahathir, Najib and myself. He requested my assistance in the general election, and he asked me that, a specific request, that I organize a tea ceremony the way and in the manner which I did for Tun Mahathir. This I did when I organized all the leaders from all of Malaysia to gather and congregate in Ipoh at the 9 God's Temple in Ipoh, which was first visited and declared open by Tun Razak. And I got all the leaders to agree to offer tea in a tea ceremony to Najib. The tea that we chose, as in the case of Tun Mahathir, was 300 years old tea. It was an elaborate setting. Elaborate setting. He agreed. But guess what? A Chinese bigot, a Chinese racist, an educated Chinese who doesn't know culture, but called himself and was appointed as political secretary of Najib. Now it's called Datuk Wong Nai Chi. Called me and said, I cannot conduct a tea ceremony for Najib because it would symbolize a Chinese kowtowing to a Malay. It would symbolize or construe as being slavish, subservient to the Prime Minister, Malay leader, coming from the mouth of his political secretary, a China Kwai member of MCA, and is still today working for the Prime Minister. I told him off in no uncertain terms. I told him off, and I told him to consult a scholar in Chinese culture. An hour later, he called me back and says, Matthias, you are right, actually, I'm wrong. Serving tea is a mark of respect and loyalty. But nevertheless, as a political secretary, I deny you the right to do so. And guess what? Najib was so scared and thought that it could be construed as being slavish, followed the ill advice of his political secretary. And on a day when all the leaders gathered on the stage to offer tea, he cancelled the event. And that's why, this is one of the reasons why the Chinese votes turned against Najib and BN. Because having invited and asked us to conduct the ceremony, and we having agreed, you rejected, is a slap to the face of all the Chinese leaders who were present that day. And yet Utusan come up with a statement, something to the effect, apa lagi Cina mau? See, they didn't know this history. So I'm telling you for the first time, one of the reasons, I'm not saying it's the only reason, one of the reasons why the Chinese were so angry was because it's an insult. They were willing to offer tea as a mark of respect to a Malay leader as they did to Tun Mahathir. But this leader, Najib, didn't have any backbone. Even though he was wrongly advised by a bigot Chinese political secretary, nominated by MCA, who was then led by Chua Soy Lake, he turned it down. See, they don't recognize the shallowness of the significance of the tea ceremony. And I hope His Royal Highness the Sultan of Johore will not fall into such a trap. I'm not questioning the integrity at this moment of Dato T, the State Exco, organizes this event. But this event will not be a proper tea ceremony to honor you, Your Royal Highness, if there is no tea ceremony. It's a mockery, and you'll be exploited. God willing, I hope it will not turn out to be that way. Having said that, I will now move on to what's happening in the civil suit by the DOJ. I've repeatedly stated to you, despite the fact what's happening in America, there's some hardcore propaganda stooge of Najib that continue to spill lies. All right? Now we're now in September. And the deadline for Jolo Rizal Aziz to come to court to challenge the forfeiture. They have not done so. So let's wait, because we don't know for sure what is exact date in which they must appear in court to challenge the forfeiture. We were told by DOJ that it is in early September. So therefore, may I ask you, all of you, to be patient. I'm monitoring the situation. For if Rizal Aziz and Joe Low and all the other people involved in diverting and stealing and money laundering 1MDB monies into all these assets, then it's conclusive that they have stolen, money laundered, fraudulently cheated Malaysia of billions of dollars. And then what's going to happen? Right now, Aru Kanda is going around the country telling a bull story as to what actually happened. The fact that Deloitte has said that accounts which they have audited in 2013 and 2014 is no longer reliable means money is missing. Contrary to the assurance by the directors of 1MDB that everything is in order. So is it a duty of the government and 1MDB to go out all over the world to ensure all these monies are to be repatriated back to Malaysia? Instead, they remain silent. This is the sham, the most disgusting hypocrisy, a dereliction of duty by all these scumbags. All these scumbags. Now, in my last address, I also told you that Bank Negara has fined 1MDB on two grounds. One was the misrepresentation, the false disclosure of information to enable and to obtain a approval from Bank Negara to enable 1MDB to remit 1 billion in the first tranche for a joint venture with those scumbag Arabs. And then in the second tranche, 833 million US dollars under so-called Islamic finance. They obtained the approval by false pretense, non-disclosure, and or fraudulent misrepresentation. Subsequently, you recall, Aru Khanna says that he saw bank statements, that there was cash in the BIZ bank in Singapore. And subsequently, Husni, the second minister, the then second finance minister, says there was no cash, but paper, notes, okay? The Bank Negara issued instruction to 1MDB. If there's no cash in BSC Bank, they are still in Cayman Islands, in somewhere else, please bring back the money by a certain date. 1MDB did not do so. Therefore, they have contravened a directive of Bank Negara, and they have contravened the Financial and Services Act. Therefore, they commit a crime. And within the ambit and powers of Bank Negara, they were hauled up and fined. So, we have a case, clear-cut case of wrongdoing for which they've been found guilty. And the Prime Minister is the Finance Minister, the Chairman of the Advisory Board, the person who has absolute control of 1MDB. And yet you have Ismail Sabri says he's been absorbed. You see? Now you notice in those words, very clever. This Ismail Sabri, he mentioned Auditor General, MACC, the police, Public Accounts Committee, Big Four accounting company. What's missing? What is missing from this statement? He thinks we are blind, or he thinks that I'm blind, I'm stupid. Bank Negara was not mentioned, you see? Bank Negara not mentioned. Alright? That's why he said, we treat our PM as if he was guilty, despite almost all authorities. Why he exclude Bank Negara? Because Bank Negara found one MDB contravening our laws. And more importantly, Bank Negara also found M-Bank for money laundering, for being a conduit, and was fined 57 million ringgit. Why M-Bank? Because M-Bank was the bank that Prime Minister Najib had his personal account. The 2.6 billion was in his account, allegedly donated by some Arab, but now proven in DOJ complaint, the money came from one MDB. There were also other monies deposited in the M-Bank account, the personal account of Najib. And now Wall Street Journal has disclosed there were phone calls from BlackBerry between Johore and offices and bank. Please handle this account properly. Of course, there is a report by Wall Street Journal, and they have said it may not be true. Doesn't matter. Let's see. But the fact that Wall Street Journal has made those statements and has not been sued says a lot about the stance by Najib, Minister of Finance, the President Bank Negara Governor, and all the other authorities. Until it's rebutted, refuted, prima facie, what Wall Street Journal has said must be true. Okay? Prima facie. Okay? So with that, I hope I've cleared up some of this misrepresentation and propaganda. Because as in my last address, I've told you time after time, their methodology, their modus operandi is tell the same lie, but in different ways, by different person, so that as if it's a new story, a new version. But if you analyze carefully, like what I did in Ismail Sabri's statement, you see the same lie, but different methodology of covering up. And this time we caught him, didn't we? We caught him. You see, he tried to cover up the lie by talking about MACC, the police, blah, blah, blah. He left out Bank Negara. He even also made a mistake because the police did not absorb Najib. You see? How devious, how insidious. So, in conclusion, let me say to all of you, please, once and for all, have it tattooed in your brain, in your mind, in your subconscious. Do not vote for UMNO. Do not vote for Barisan Nasional because they're a bunch of liars, scumbags, and crooks, criminals, gangster politicians. They should not have your trust. If they offer you money, take it, because it's taxpayers' money, BRIM. And then if it's not BRIM money, some other money, take it, like I said before in my address, record the giving of money by way of a photo in your hand by your handphone, get witness that exchange, and report them and expose them as vigilantes are doing right now in the country. Finally, once again, I appeal to all of you to surrender yourself to God Almighty completely, has absolute faith that He will protect us, defend us, and guide us under all circumstances in the face of all enemies and adversities. Have that faith. Have that unshakable faith, for He will guide us, I guarantee you. No one else will help us except Him. Be assured of that. And we will have victory. With that, thank you very much. And I wish you a happy weekend.